Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future is Bilingual podcast. My name is Heather. Thank you for joining me today. This multilingual motivation episode is about something that most of us enjoy at least some of the time, and that is TV shows. So I hope that you will enjoy this episode and it will give you some food for thought on things that you can do with TV shows in your target language that maybe you hadn't thought about doing. So let's get right to it. So I've been wanting to talk about TV shows for a little while now, but I left my notes unfinished for a couple months because other things came up, like interviews and different things. But this is actually the perfect time to publish this episode, as Tommy, who was a previous guest in episode 13, I believe, which is called Be Proud of Who You Are, he has started his own podcast. He's an English language teacher in Germany, and he started his own podcast called English Podcast with Tommy. And he asked me to be a guest and to talk about one resource that I would suggest for English language learners. And I suggested the TV show This Is Us, which you may or may not have heard of. And I will put a link into the show notes if you're interested in hearing our discussion about that show. In this episode today, I'm not going to give you specific ideas of shows to watch. I'm going to talk more about the things that we can do while we're watching or after we watch that'll help you. So if you are interested in specific recommendations, there are many people, many bloggers that have put lists together, like Marissa, who was another guest on the podcast. She has articles at relearnalanguage.com. And you can also just do a Google search for, best Spanish shows to watch for learners, best French TV shows to watch for learners, etc. So I'm not going to give you specific examples now. And a quick disclaimer before we get started, kind of a confession, I do not have a Netflix subscription, nor have I ever had one, so I cannot speak to Netflix in and of itself. It's kind of shocking, but we're doing okay without it. We have had Hulu, and we had a Polish TV subscription, and I do miss out on some shows that are only Netflix originals, but it's okay. But I know that I have heard many people say Netflix is great for language learners because you can change your language and see many more options. I know there's great things with subtitles, so do your own research about Netflix, or if you already know stuff, great. Go ahead and spread the news, tell people. I personally do not have experience with Netflix, so I'm not going to be giving you any tips specifically to that. Okay, so this episode is going to be focused around 3 basic questions, which are, why should we watch TV shows if we want to learn a language? Can all levels benefit from this? And how can I get the most out of watching TV shows? So I have many reasons why TV shows are a great resource. So let's get into them. First of all, they are entertaining. They're so fun, and you don't even realize you're learning because you're just enjoying the show. So if you're at a certain level where you don't really need to be reading the subtitles, you can really enjoy it and just sit back and relax. And that's what TV is good for, right? They are also authentic resources. So authentic resource just means that it's made for native speakers. That is so wonderful. As a language teacher, we're always looking to provide our students authentic resources versus ones that are created for students, because usually they're dumbed down or they're just changed in ways that, natives, we wouldn't say these things or do these things. So authentic resources are really amazing. So it's materials that are for natives, created by natives, if that makes sense. TV shows also help you get used to the speed at which native speakers will talk and talk to each other. So the dialogue speed can be different, and this depends on the country and the region and all sorts of things, but at least it gives you practice. So that's a really great listening practice tool, is getting used to the speed, because if you're learning a language and you're in a classroom, your teacher might speak slower to you, your classmates are probably speaking slower. So having more exposure to native speakers is going to give you a lot of good practice and training, and you're not required to respond to them. You're just doing this for listening practice. So it's a really great way to train your ear outside of the classroom, or if you're learning on your own time. They also give you something to talk about with native speakers or other learners, or just anyone that will listen. If you're really into a show, people love to talk about the shows they're watching, why they're exciting, what's happening on the show, especially if you find someone who also watches the same show. You can really get into a heated debate about it. They also teach you a lot about culture and customs, maybe without even realizing it, but usually as a foreigner, as an outsider, you notice those things more, that they're different from your own culture, different from things that the way you would do things. So they can be really great, subtle teachers of culture and customs. Another great thing that TV shows can teach you is humor. Now, not all shows are going to be comedies, but many of them do have some humor embedded in them. And you can really see how a culture uses humor in their shows, or even what they find funny might be different from what people in your country would find funny. So humor is a really big part of many of popular shows on that I can think about, at least for the United States. One thing I really appreciate about TV shows and series is that they have a shorter format. So I often don't feel like I have the time to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie, but to watch a 25-minute show, maybe it's a 45-minute show, it's not too bad. Most shows don't go up beyond the 1 hour mark per episode. And yes, there is a thing called binge watching. That means you watch a whole bunch of episodes at one time. But right now I'm just talking about taking in one episode. But yes, you can also binge if you have the time and the desire to do that. I personally do not binge watch. I don't have the attention span to just sit. I'm not a person who sits. I like to move and get up and do things. So for me to sit for a long time is not in my nature, but many people do enjoy binge watching. Another great part is that usually if you have a show that you like, you have the same characters every week or however often you watch, that you get to know really well. And you really get a deep dive into if you're into psychology, like the personality, the way that they act, and all that good stuff. So you get to know characters really well, and you can kind of analyze them. That's kind of half the fun of watching a show, is talking about what people are doing, why are they doing that, especially if you have someone to discuss the show with. So this one's not always true, but often, depending on the shows you watch, you can get some realistic dialogue and kind of just everyday things that people might say. So this is more true of like maybe dramas versus shows that are very comedic. Those might not be so realistic, but just kind of your everyday family. There's many shows that just kind of represent everyday people, normal people doing normal things, but maybe there's some comedy involved there. But I do find that many shows have realistic dialogues. So that can be very useful, just because you're going to hear the way people normally speak to each other. That's it's just a great listening tool. And speaking of listening, when you have a TV show, you actually have the audio visual together. So it's much easier to understand a video, in this case a TV show, than it is to have just the audio, like a podcast or the radio, where you don't have the visual cues to kind of tell you what they're talking about. So if I said a word right now that you don't know, there's no visual cue to show you what I'm talking about. Whereas if this was a YouTube video, then I could show you what I'm talking about. So having both audio and visual together is very helpful for learning, because you have those two forces helping you to understand. Finally, you can rewatch episodes, as many people do. They love to rewatch their favorite shows. That's also not something I'm into doing. I would much rather watch something new than rewatch, but that's a personal choice. And especially when you're first trying to improve, depending on your level, it may be very useful to watch the episode once, kind of take some notes, look some things up, and then watch it again once you have a better understanding. It's going to help you feel like you're more fluent, you're going to understand things more and be able to enjoy it more that second time. So the ability to rewatch, the ability to pause, the ability to rewind and go back, those are all really great benefits. And you are in control when you're watching the show. And last but not least, there is a TV show about every single topic on Earth, I think. So you can really find whatever you're interested in. I think you can find something, whether it's, animals, celebrities, comedy, drama, crime, you name it. There's probably a show made about everything at this point. So maybe not in all languages, I have to say. But depending on your language that you're studying, you can probably find something that will interest you. So be on the lookout, do lots of searching, ask some native friends if you're having trouble finding things, but there are definitely TV shows out there that are entertaining. Okay, can all levels benefit from TV? Yes and no. I would say it's going to take a lot more effort and dedication if you are a beginner, you're a complete beginner or novice, or even maybe if you are a high-level beginner or a false beginner, you're still going to have to put in a lot of effort or just be reading a lot of subtitles for a long time. So yes, you can still benefit. I would say you can get a lot of cultural knowledge. I know watching TV in Korean, it's very difficult because I don't really speak Korean at all. But I can get a lot of cultural knowledge and still enjoy the process. But yeah, if I was actually going to use that resource, I think it would take me a long time. I would spend much more time than the 20-minute show because I'd be pausing, going back, taking notes, looking things up, and doing all that on your own is a lot of work. Now, if you're someone who's at an intermediate level, you're not going to have to do as much work. You're going to be able to kind of sit back and enjoy a little bit more, but not as much as the advanced. The advanced learner is going to be able to really just sit back and enjoy the show the way natives do. A lot of us watch TV as a very passive activity. It's something that we do to relax, at the end of the night, to not have to be thinking or doing, or it's just a very relaxing activity when it's in a language you speak very well. But unfortunately, that's not really the case if you are a beginner. However, that does not mean that you can't benefit. So I think if you are motivated and willing, you can get a lot out of TV, and maybe just do it in smaller chunks, find shorter episodes, things that have subtitles. There's definitely ways that you can support yourself so that you're not really drowning in all of this newness. You can, find ways to support it. And lastly, how should I go about watching TV in order to improve my skills? What can I do rather than just kind of sit back and passively watch? Are there things that I could or should be doing that may help me? The first thing I just want to say, which is kind of the elephant in the room, is that no matter what you do, you are doing listening comprehension. Whether you are taking notes and being very diligent or you're just sitting back and watching, you are getting listening comprehension, which is amazing. That's such a great tool to get lots of good input. So even if you do nothing, you should still pat yourself on the back for watching a show in your target language because you are getting tons of listening comprehension. And I think we need to applaud that because that is important. The next thing you can do if you want to work on your pronunciation is to do shadowing, which is when you repeat after the person that's speaking. So again, you're home. You can, if you're by yourself or with someone, you can just kind of practice repeating the words, whether you pause or not. Depends how fast you want to kind of go. And you don't have to do this with all the words, but sometimes if you hear a phrase and you're like, oh, that's such a useful phrase, I could definitely use that with my friends. It might be useful to, pause, maybe even write it down, but definitely try and say it. Say it the way that the person on the show said it. Say it with the same intonation. Try and sound natural and native if you can. Not that you have to have a native accent. That's a whole other can of worms I don't want to open right now. But I think the thing with accent is that it's all about comprehensibility. And we want speakers, the interlocutors that we're talking with, the people we're talking with, to be able to understand us. So it's not about having a certain accent, but it's about having an accent that's going to be easy for people to understand. So if we're all used to hearing a word pronounced a certain way, the closer you can get to that natural pronunciation is going to help your people that you speak with. So again, with pronunciation, that's great. You can also just take notes because, like I said, if you hear a phrase that's really great or you hear a new verb, hear a new, expression, it's not a bad idea to have a little notebook. It could even be just like a small notebook for your TV watching that you kind of keep all these interesting phrases in and just to jot it down. Another way that's even quicker is to do it on your phone and just do a voice note, and you can go back and listen later. And that'll help you with your pronunciation as well. So it's kind of a double win there. But definitely writing down things that either you find interesting or you don't understand is going to be a great way to engage with the content. If you have someone that can help you, so I would often watch Polish shows with my husband, and much to his chagrin, I would always bother him and say, what was that? What did they say? What did that mean? So I was probably very annoying to him, but it was really helpful because he was quicker than writing it down, looking it up in a dictionary, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a friend that you can watch with that would help you, whether they're native or advanced, that is a great tool. Or again, just write it down, do the research on your own, but there's definitely ways to make the most of it. And like I said, rewatching shows, again, is a great way to advance your listening comprehension. You might notice things you didn't notice the first time. So this is especially true if you're reading subtitles. You can kind of get uber focused on the subtitles, I guess, overly focused and miss some of the things that are happening around in the scene, in the background. So if you're able to watch an episode more than once, you're definitely going to notice more things, whether or not you're reading the subtitles. And speaking of subtitles, if the option is there to have subtitles in the language you're listening to, that is the best option when you're learning. Second best would be having them in your native tongue or a language that you speak. But having the subtitles in the language you're hearing is really great for learning because you're getting reading practice in that language along with listening practice. I know sometimes with films, they're not exactly the same. Sometimes they write something different than they're saying. I'm not really sure how that works with shows. I haven't had that option as much with Polish. We would just watch Polish TV. There weren't usually subtitles unless someone was speaking another language. Then they had Polish subtitles. But again, subtitles are really great, and I know they're often available with different things depending on where you're watching. So I hope that this episode, it's a short one, but I hope that it gave you lots of food for thought, things to think about. And I really hope that you guys will go out and look for more shows to watch. Personally, I don't have great recommendations, but I know that there are people that do. So please post. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you're watching a new show. I would love to hear about it, even if it's a language I'm not studying or don't speak. I would still be interested in knowing what you're tuning into. And I think it's just really valuable way to enjoy your studying. Okay, studying doesn't have to all be grammar and memorization and flashcards. It can also just be fun things that you would do in your native language, but you're going to do them now in your target language. So thank you guys for listening. As always, feel free to leave a rating and review. That would mean so much to me. It's a great way to get podcasters more recognition on platforms like Apple Podcast. So you can find a link for that on my website. There's a Rate This Podcast button right at the top. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please do share it on social media. It means a lot to me just to help get the word out. And I love seeing that people are listening and enjoying the episodes. So make sure you tag me so that I see your post. Otherwise, I don't get notified that you made a post about it. So thank you guys again. Hope you're all doing well. Stay cool, those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And we'll talk to you soon.